G'day everyone. Today we're going to go through how to service an automatic transmission, changing the filter and the fluid, including flushing the fluid out of the torque converter, the cooler, the charge pump, and the control valve as well. This particular vehicle is a Toyota Hilux. It's a 2009 and it has the 4-speed auto. The latest had the 5-speed, and the procedure is pretty much the same, except this one has a dipstick for checking the level. So what we're going to do is we'll dump the fluid, we'll change the filter, and we'll flush out the system. I've got around 12 liters of fluid here. The system should take around 10, so we should have enough. Of course, I've got a filter kit as well, and it cost just over $200 for all of those. So let's get started. We'll change all the fluids, and we'll go through how to check the level as well. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is drain the fluid out through the drain bung in the pan of the transmission. Now, if you don't have a drain bung, you can slowly unbolt the pan and tilt it backwards to get as much fluid as you can out. But in this case, we do have a drain bung, and that oil is pretty black. I have been driving this car pretty hard. We've been towing with it and fall driving quite a bit, and it's done around about 100,000 Ks since the last time I did change the oil and filter in the transmission. Now, of course, these automatic transmissions are usually good for about 100,000 Ks before changing the fluid, but is recommended to change them more often if you're working the car hard, especially if you're towing. Now, there is a bash guard here. There's actually 3 of them. We need to get that bash guard out of the way to get to all of the bolts, including the bolts that hold the dipstick in. These 4-speed have a dipstick, and there are 2 bolts there. One you can get from the top, and one you can get from the bottom with a 12mm socket. Now, all the rest of the bolts here, they're a 10mm socket, and I'm going to go through with a little rattle gun here and undo all of them gradually and store them away so we can put it all back together later. Of course, the little rattle gun's handy here. You don't have to use one, but it's a very handy tool to get these out very quickly. There's a lot of them, and they're not exceptionally tight. Once we've got them all undone, I needed to hit the sump pan here with a small dead blow hammer just to free up the gasket to get it down. Now, of course, we have a dipstick on this one, and it does get in the way a bit. We have to drag it all the way down and out through the side of the vehicle. Being a 4-wheel-drive, not so bad. A little bit harder if it's a 2-wheel-drive Hilux. Now, I've cleaned out the pan and got around about 4 liters of oil out of it. The rest is still sitting inside the transmission. There are 3 magnets that sit in the bottom of the pan. A little bit of fuzz is okay, a little bit of paste, but anything flaky or big could spell a problem with the transmission. I'm pretty happy with these. It's done 100,000 Ks of hard work, and the magnets had a little bit on them, and there's a tiny bit sitting in the bottom of the oil pan here that we use to drain the oil, but nothing too bad. I've cleaned up that pan inside and out. I gave the outside a bit of a clean as well. Make sure it's super tidy, because contamination is what kills automatic transmissions. Of course, we've cleaned up the magnets really, really clean, put them back where they're meant to go. You can see that it's nice, neat, and tidy. And we can go ahead and change this filter screen. They're about 80 bucks, this filter screens. I've got a Ryco one here that I'm about to put in. There's 4 bolts that hold them in. There's 2 silver bolts at the front, and the 2 ones at the back are the black ones, and they are a 10mm socket. Of course, it still holds a bit of fluid. Just look out for that, unlike I did there. There's little gaskets that sit on it, and it can only really go in one spot. We'll put the bolts back in the same spots they came out of, and we have a nice new screen. We'll torque them bolts up as well, and we torque them to 10 Newton meters. Bolts, I am going to use a rolling torque wrench that starts at 0 to that 10 Newton meters or 88 inch pounds. Just remember that is inch pounds, not foot pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench this small, a 1/4 inch ratchet or a bar will do it. Just nip them up a little bit. They're not very tight. And of course, we're going to clean all the bottom of that control valve and the case ready for the gasket. Now, the gasket that came in the kit, it's a little bit hard to work with. It flops about and the holes are eccentric. It will only go one way. In this case, rather than putting the gasket on the pan, I put the gasket on the bottom of the transmission case and held it in place with a couple of drops of gasket maker, 1 in each corner, just to hold it up and keep it steady while I put the pan in. It's a bit of a pain with the dipstick, and we can go ahead and put all them small bolts in. Now, they are 7.4 Newton meters or 65 inch pounds. And once we've got them all in, we can go in a bit of a crisscross pattern and torque them up, and make sure you do a couple of laps, because once you've torqued up one side and you go back to the other side, the first side is going to be loose again. We want to go round and round a few times just to make sure everything is evenly torqued to that 7.4 Newton meters just to make sure that gasket is evenly pulled down and it won't leak. Of course, once we've done that, do not forget to tighten up that drain plug. Put a new washer on it if you need to, and we're going to tighten that to 20 newton meters or 15 foot-pounds this time around. It's not very tight, just a bit of a push on a small bar in this case. There it is, 20 newton meters. Now we can go ahead and start to fill the transmission. Now I've chosen to use a pump. You can put a funnel in there. It's a bit of a small hole and it's a lot of oil we want to put in. Now I've got about 4 liters out, 3 to 4 liters. So I'm going to put about the same in. I'm going to put in 2 of these just to get us started, and that gives us enough to flush it out. I'm just going to make sure I don't flush out more than I have to put in. So we want to get around about 10 liters out and put our 10 liters in. Now we have 2 lines here. Of course, they are both going to the radiator. One is coming out of the transmission, the top one, and the bottom one is the one that returns. So I've taken the hose off the transmission here on the return line. And now honestly, I should have taken the other end of the hose off rather than the radiator spurting into a bucket like this uncontrollably. I should have taken the other end of the hose off so we can put it right to the bottom of the bucket and control a bit more of that flow, but it doesn't really matter. I have this sitting on a mat and I'm going to control how much it flows out. Basically, we start the engine in park, it's fine, and the torque converter charge pump will automatically pump all of that dirty fluid into this bucket, and it's going to suck the clean fluid in. We want to keep doing this until we see the fluid getting a bit cleaner, or of course we run out of fluid. Now here's the dipstick. It does say Toyota Type 4 on it. Make sure you use the right fluid. We have a hot and a cold line. Now there's a cold bottom and a cold max, and a hot bottom and a hot max. We're going for cold max here. So we'll start the engine. I've already pre-filled the transmission with the same amount of fluid that came out. That's the easiest way to do it. The same amount of fluid that we flushed out and we drained out. We're going to make sure we go into reverse and drive through all the gears, move the car backwards and forwards, make sure all the clutches get filled and our oil level is going to be correct. So do that a few times and then we can return the transmission to park, leave the engine running, and we'll check the level of the transmission. The top level of cold is okay. Too much is not okay. We either need to suck it out with a pump or we need to drain a bit more out. We need to get the level correct as much as we can, and we can check it as the engine is running. You see my engine is running there. Probably need some engine mounts. Now we want to get on the top mark of cold. Anywhere between the top and bottom marks is acceptable, but of course we want it on the top mark. Now, cold setting is okay, it's fine, but of course take the car for a drive, go through all the gears, go up a few hills, get it to operating temperature and check it when it is at operating temperature. We want it on the top mark of hot, no more, not really much less, but of course more is a problem as well. Check it when it's hot. It's going to be hot more often than it's going to be cold, and that is the more important level. Cold is a good guide for now. Check it when it's hot. Other than that, check for leaks. Thank you very much for watching.